go along with all those removal spells and Farseek and a couple of Planeswalkers.
Interesting about Brian Brandemon's list, he's not playing the same list as Todd. He decided to go against the grain. He's not playing the Champion of the Parishes in the main. He's playing Lingering Souls in the main. He still has Zephyr Necromancer, but he has 2 copies of Obsidian Ghost Council as well, along with 2 copies of Sorin Lord of Innistrad. So he's not able to be as aggressive as Todd, but he has more anti-control cards than Sorin and Obsidian in his main deck.
Well, if you know anything about Brian, he's not going to be able to get away from Obsidian in his deck.
Yeah.
I think it is one of his favorite cards, if not his favorite. So I'm not surprised to see that in his 75 anywhere here, as Abramson's going to have the quote nut draw of a Farseek immediately on turn 2.
The one thing I like about Brian's list over Todd's is if you have cards like Falcon Retro Aristocrat and Obsidian and Sorin in your deck, those are all cards that can give Jund a real hard time.
Sure.
So I think his deck is a little more poised to do better in a format where there's a lot of Jund decks, which we probably expect this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, even though Jund hasn't been performing as well recently, I mean, it's still one of the best decks in the format, if not the best deck, and it is the deck to beat. That when you are preparing to come to a tournament, you have to have Jund in mind. You can't ignore it or hope to dodge it, because you are going to play against it at some point here. As Braun Duin does come across with that Doom Traveler and plays a Cartel Aristocrat. After combat, we'll see what Abramson does have to do on his turn 3, because he does have land.
Yeah, hopefully he has either a Nighthawk or a Huntmaster here. He really needs one of those creatures to sort of stop the beats. And so it looks like he doesn't have anything here.
I did catch a glimpse of his hand. He does have Abrupt Decay in his hand. He also has Olivia Voldaren too, but he's choosing not to play Olivia this turn. Now here's a Zephyr Necromancer from Braun Duin.
So, interesting. What is he planning on? He has an Abrupt Decay. Abrupt Decay can target the Cartel Aristocrat, but again, that can get saved by the Doom Traveler.
Yeah, I think one of the things that makes this deck nice that we were talking about just a moment ago is that it is durable. You know, a card like Abrupt Decay, look at Abrupt Decay right now. No real good targets. I mean, yeah, I think his best target is, he lets the Necromancer resolve and he actually has to kill that so that it can't generate an advantage over the course of this game.
And that's kind of why I like just playing the creature there, because you can play a creature that can halt the attack, and as well, you're not wasting your spells just yet, because this is basically just it's killing the Necromancer, but Brian's still going to be able to generate a token off it anyway. So you're not really impacting the board that much. Whereas a turn for Olivia, granted, if Brian does have a removal spell, you're going to lose your Olivia, but if he doesn't have a removal spell, you're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I like one of the things I talk about with my friends sometimes with Olivia is it's just kind of the test, right? Like you play it on turn 3 and you just go, do you have it?
Yeah.
Because like if you don't have it, it's just lights out. Because it's just going to take over the game by itself. And I like putting people to the test with a card like that. You see Abramson's going to draw his card, not a Bonfire of the Damned. Going to play the Stomping Ground Untapped and has Curse of Death's Hold.
Curse of Death's Hold.
Okay.
So there we go. Pretty good card in this matchup. It will deal with the Doom Necromancer, the Doom Traveler, along with the token that it will generate. And it makes Brian's army a lot less threatening now, only be able to attack for 2.
Now we are in game number 2 here. Braun Duin did win game number 1. We didn't have the opportunity to go after sideboards, but we saw when Todd was playing that he had access to War Priest of Thune. I don't know if Brian does or not.
He does not, but he does have 3 copies of Intangible Virtue, so that can help a little bit with his token army.
Sure.
But again, Curse of Death's Hold is going to be able to hold down the fort right now pretty well.
Yeah, this is going to help too.
And now Huntmaster's going to come down, so it's going to give Jonathan a little life cushion, along with 2 blockers here.
Yeah, Curse of Death's Hold playing a huge role in this game. You see the Huntmaster, the Wolf token, and 2 life there from Abramson. Going to pass the turn back to Braun Duin. It looks like he's going to be in a little bit of trouble here, because now he's got to force his way through those 2/2s. You see his army of Zephyr Necromancer, that token, and of course Cartel Aristocrat. But those guys are just 1/1s.
Yeah, they're just 1/1s. He doesn't really have a profitable attack here. It looks like Jonathan might actually have a Tragic Slip in his hand as well. So this is the situation where if Brian can't deal with the Huntmaster here, Jonathan's likely just going to pass the turn back and start having his Huntmaster do work.
Yep. You see Braun Duin doesn't play a Cartel Aristocrat. It looks like he's considering playing that Blood Crypt, but we're going to see, I think, a response. Yeah, a response to the Cartel Aristocrat. So Cartel is going to go on this deck. You see the players are going to back up a little bit here. Brian was a little bit hasty, so he's going to cast Cartel Aristocrat. Looks like this is going to go onto the stack. Abramson's going to cast a Tragic Slip. Look like he's going to target the Zephyr Necromancer in response to the Aristocrat. And that looks like what's going to happen.
I'm surprised that he did it in response. It doesn't seem like you need to do it in response. It does. I mean, if Brian decides to attack with it, it's fine. It doesn't really matter if the if it's in play or not. Maybe he's afraid of generating another token if Brian sacrifices in response, but again, I think Brian, I think I'd prefer to just untap and then pass the turn back and let my Huntmaster do the work.
Sure.
And save that Tragic Slip for a Falcon Wrath Aristocrat, perhaps. Or actually, I guess Curse of Death Soul will deal with that.
Yeah. You see, Cartel Aristocrat does give him across for 1. He did sacrifice, did Braun Duin. The Necromancer that was being targeted by Tragic Slip gives this guy protection from green, gets on for only 1 point of damage, though. And as you mentioned, now Huntmaster can kind of take over the game now, because I would be surprised if you played a spell now. You let it flip, you start letting it do its thing.
Well, that's the other reason I didn't want him to cast a Tragic Slip, because now he has 1 less spell that he could potentially use to reflip the Huntmaster once it flips to the Ravager of the Fells. Because I believe he just has a land in his hand, so even if he's able to flip the Huntmaster once, he's not going to be able to do that much more work with it. He's basically just going to be able to kill a token on his turn, and Brian's going to be able to continue to sacrifice that token and get his Cartel Aristocrat through. Thankfully, it's only a 1 power, so...
Yeah, unless I saw his hand wrong a little bit earlier. I thought he did have Olivia Voldaren in his hand, but it
looks right.
It looks like he only has 1 card left in his hand. I mean, either way, I don't think there's much reason to cast a spell. I agree with you that you just let Huntmaster start to take over here a little bit. It's going to flip into Ravager of the Fells. You see, it's going to target Cartel Aristocrat for the 2 damage, and 2's going to go upstairs to Braun Duin. You see both players will get the life totals correct as Brian's going to draw a card. It's a Clifftop Retreat.
Yeah, because next turn, if Jonathan draws a land, he can play the Olivia, kill a creature, then cast Tragic Slip, and then reflip the Ravager.
Yeah, if he had held the Tragic Slip.
If he held the Tragic Slip. So, but either way, he's still in good shape. He's at 13 right now. He's got an Olivia in his hand, like you mentioned, from the beginning of the game that's been there. And Brian just has an army of 1/1s basically on his side.
Yeah, and you see he was able to push through a point of damage to put Abramson down at 12, but again, whittling away 1 at a time. 1 Thragtusk just kind of undoes everything. So if you're Braun Duin, you have to hope that Abramson doesn't draw one of those or go into the red zone like he is right now. You see Braun Duin does not have any good blocks, so he's going to end up taking 6, and it looks like we are going to see that Olivia Voldaren now show up to the party.
And he's going to kill the... Oh, so he decides not to kill the token.
I think you want to kill right away there, right?
Well, if he tries to kill it in combat, well, let's see what Brian does here, because if he just doesn't do anything and forces Brian to sacrifice first, I think it's fine.
Okay. So see, Braun Duin does draw his card. We're in his first main phase, maybe moving to attackers here momentarily, but he's in a... You know, we've seen John kind of establish his board position before, where they've got a Huntmaster, maybe with or without the Wolf token, Olivia Voldaren, and breathing down the opponent's neck, daring them to do something, and they have to have multiple things to get themselves out of this situation, and it doesn't look like Braun Duin has those things to get out of this, as he just plays Clifftop Retreat and passes the turn back.
Yeah, once they can start using their creatures as removal, and they don't have to rely on their spells, John just starts to slowly whittle away the game.
There's a Tragic Slip to take care of the Olivia Voldaren, so that's step 1. But again, he's just got 2 1/1 Cartel Aristocrats to do that Curse of Death's Hold. He's got that Ravager of the Fells that is looking to continue to take over this game. Braun Duin sitting at 8, Abramson at 12, and he's coming to the red zone again.
And it looks like Abramson drew another Olivia here, so...
It's a good Magic card.
Yep. And that is what's going to come down here. So Olivia comes down. Brian's at 2 now, so... Yeah, not much Brian can do in this situation. Even an Aristocrat can't help him here. And Brian scoops it up, and we're going to go to game 3 here.
Yeah, I saw Brian's hand, too. He had a copy of Lingering Souls in his hand.
Yeah.
Not so much right now.
So, I'm not sure if Brian, if he brought in the appetite for Brains or Duress, but definitely could see those cards coming in now, especially after Curse of Death Soul basically shut off most of his deck. Wants to be able to deal with those cards before they come down. Again, he's got 2 copies of Mark Muni and Zealous Conscripts as well. I think you want those because you just need more ways to deal with Olivia.
Yeah.
And potentially just be able to steal Thragtusk and generate a token on your side. So he also has a Sorin Lord, another Sorin, another copy of Obsidian Ghost Council, 2 Orzhov Charms, and 3 Intangible Virtues. So he actually has a lot of options here. It looks like he has specifically designed his sideboard with Jund in mind, because he just has a lot of cards that he could bring in. In his main deck, though, not many cards that he wants to take out. He's got 3 copies of Gather the Townsfolk, which I would imagine are probably coming out.
Yeah, those just seem mediocre on all fronts. Without Intangible Virtue or Sorin, you're looking at just 1/1 tokens that aren't even they don't contribute to a Champion of the Parish draw because it doesn't have Champion in his deck.
Yeah.
So I think those are easy to sideboard out.
I honestly don't love Blood Artist in this matchup either. When I used to play Aristocrats, Blood Artist was one of those, I would shave some of those numbers because One, it's really kind of hard to combo with Blood Artist against Jund simply because of the amount of removal they have.
Of course.
And, there are times where you can kind of put pressure on them and Blood Artist can sort of finish it off even if they have like a bonfire. But the problem is your best cards against them are, Obsidat and like Duress and Appetite for Brains. So you're kind of, I don't want to say going big, but you're not going to be able to put as much aggression on them early on, where Blood Artists can finish them off. So when you're adding Sorens to your deck, when you're adding Obsidats to your deck, and you're trying to be more resilient to the removal, I think a card like Blood Artist just doesn't fit that theme.
Sure.
So I can see him shaving those numbers and getting rid of the Gather Townfolks for some of the sideboard cards we mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, the way that I think you go about beating Jund is either A, you get underneath it before they can get set up, or B, you just try to throw haymakers back and forth, and Blood Artist does not promote either of those things.
Yep.
We take a look at Abramson's sideboard here. Your typical Jund sideboard. He's got a bunch of singletons. And he's got three. We'll go over the three of which is called Gary Charm, which I think is actually quite good in this matchup. So if you're Braun to win, that's a little bit scary. He's got two Duresses, and then we come to Singleton City. One Tragic Slip, one Doomblade, one Mizium Mortars, one Lifebane Zombie, one Liliana the Veil, an Underworld Connections, a Barter in Blood, that Curse of Deathhold that we saw show up in that second game, another Garruk Primal Hunter to go along with his one in his main deck, and a Primeval Bounty. So options are plentiful here. Again, what you want to do in this matchup is you just want to kind of sideboard into just a lean killing machine, a lot of removal and then efficient creatures, which Abramson's able to do. He can get in another Tragic Slip. He can get in that Mizium Mortars. He can sideboard in some number of Golgari Charm. I don't think he wants all three, but some number of those. He's able to sideboard in maybe Underworld Connections if he wants to go a bit longer. You don't really like Barter and Blood in this matchup. Of course, he has the Curse of Deathhold in. I don't think he needs Primeval Bounty or Garruk Primal Hunter to be able to win, but he's able to board out some mediocre cards like Lifebane Zombie, which is a real stinker in this matchup. He's able to board out Liliana the Veil, which I don't think is great. And that Doomblade, I don't like that very much here either as well.
And Rakdos Return is another card probably you're not going to want in this matchup, mostly because they're going to be able to empty their hand pretty much.
Yeah, they should be able to empty their hand before that card actually makes a difference. If he's on a slower game plan with a card like Obsidat and like Sorin and some higher mana spells, you might be able to catch them. But especially when Braun wins on the play for game 3, I think you got to get those out of your deck.
I think if I was on the play and I'm the Jund player, I can see leaving the returns in. But on the draw, and again, Jonathan might not know how aggressive an Aristocrat version he is yet. I don't think we didn't see the Obsidat that game or the Sorin, so I'm not sure if what he saw game 1. But if this is the champion version of Aristocrats, then Rakdos Return is obviously very, very bad against that version. Yeah. So I think Jonathan might just play it safe and cut those cards. But again, like you said, he's got plenty of options in his sideboard. Tragic Slip's obviously very good. The Curse of Deathhold, along with the Mizium Mortars, I think is another card that can be a pseudo Wrath effect. So I can see shaving Lifebane Zombies and maybe a Doomblade and maybe a Rakdos Return here or there for those cards.
See, Brian's drawing his opening 7. He's going to be on the play. One of the cards I did see in his hand is a Zealous Conscript, so immediately that one could have an effect in this matchup, being able to take a Thragtusk, Olivia, various different things that Zealous Conscripts can do. And it's a card that, as powerful as it is, very few people play around it because it never has been highlighted over its lifespan. But every time that someone casts Zealous Conscripts, it's like pretty much always a blowout. Yeah,
it's never a card that you want to see, but you don't expect it. You don't think about it. It's it's just these random situations where, oh wow, looks like I'm just gonna lose here.
See, Braun was going to come in with that Doom Traveler, play a second one. So he's got some white and black lands, an Isolated Chapel and Godless Shrine. We don't see any red mana just yet for Braun to win, but he's off to a decent start. I think he's hoping to dodge a Farseek here, which he has been able to do.
Yeah, so the dreaded Farseek from Jund doesn't appear to happen. And we're see Brian attacks for 2, but doesn't have a third land.
I saw he drew Zafir Necromancer for the turn. He also has a Lingering Souls in his hand, so not having that third land is pretty big. He needs it here. I think he drew it.
It's not a red mana, but it looks like it is a Godless Shrine, so he will be able to cast the Necromancer this turn if he chooses.
Takes 2, goes to 16. Necromancer or Lingering Souls? He's going to go Necromancer? Okay.
So now, even if... oh, wow.
Ooh, so Golgari
Charm deals with both the Doom Travelers. Brian will get 2 tokens, but at least he doesn't get the zombies that Necromancer would have generated.
Yeah. So Necromancer's going to resolve. You got your 2 Spirit tokens there. Abramson's going to draw a card. Let's see what 4-drop he has. You see he's got a Dragon Skull Summit that he's pulled to the front. Is it Huntmaster? Is it Olivia? Is it any of the above? It's Olivia.
It is Olivia.
It's test time.
Let's see if he has it. And without a red mana, and a sacrifice outlet too, because having a sacrifice outlet makes it a lot trickier because obviously Mark of Mutiny and Zealous Conscript suddenly become pseudo removal.
Yep.
But Brian doesn't even have a sacrifice outlet, so he can't even turn on a tragic flip. So as long as Jonathan plays it smart, he should get an activation out of it.
It's funny you bring up both of those cards. Bring up a third card here, an Appetite for Brains, which is what Duin drew for the turn. A little late. Going to take that back up Olivia. Looks like he's 4 lances hand as Abramson. Yeah, Blood Crypt, Overgrown Tomb, Rootbound Crag, and a Forest. So, yeah, all he's got to do is beat Olivia.
That's it.
That's no big deal. Everyone's done that, right?
It's just Olivia doesn't care about spells.
Yeah, it's super easy to do.
I'll take my chances.
Yeah, you mentioned Zealous Conscripts, you mentioned Mark of Mutiny that can play pseudo removal when Duin does have a sacrifice outlet. He has both those cards in his hand right now.
Oh, wow. And so Jonathan, fortunate here, not only does Brian not have any sacrifice outlets play, he doesn't even have any red mana. So pretty good shape for Jonathan's Olivia right here if he's able to dodge a couple of removal spells from Brian.
So if you're Duin there, do you get in? No attack, no bluff a tragic slip?
I think you bluff the tragic slip.
Yeah, I think
before
you
you
get in.
I think casting Appetite for Brains is fine, and then you smash right away.
Yeah.
Like you immediately tap all your guys sideways.
That's the same thing I was thinking because I don't think there's much of a world where Abramson blocks because he has no spells.
Unless he's feeling quite bold, I don't think he blocks there. I think Brian probably gets in for 4.
And in this matchup, I think you got to eke out every point of advantage that you can. Now, the thing that Duin could be doing is. He could be. I mean, he obviously has no answer to Olivia at this point, but maybe he's trying to get it so that Olivia gets built up a little bit, so he can go Mark of Mutiny, it hit you, and then Zealous Conscript try to kill you.
But that's why I like getting in the damage.
Yeah, exactly.
Because I agree with you. One of the ways that Brian could potentially win this game, based on what he just saw that Jonathan only has 4 lands in his hand right here, is if he able to drop Jonathan down to 11, and then possibly draw a red source to cast out Mark of Mutiny when Olivia's big enough to just kill him in 1 turn.
So you just have to get as much damage in as you can.
Yeah.
Even if he does block, it's worth getting in that 2 or potentially 3 points of damage because you just need to add it up to get him to 20.
Yeah. You basically you have to figure that Jonathan's actually probably going to activate Olivia twice this turn, so it'll go up to a 5 power.
Yep.
And if he does have, it looks like he has a mark. I don't know if he has double mark or Zealous Construct, but basically, even 1 hit, if you have 2 of those spells, you just do it 2 turns in a row, you should be able to kill him.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the ways that Brian could win this game. So I think he might regret not going in for 4 that turn.
So you see Olivia's going to shoot down one of those spirit tokens, going to shoot the Necromancer as well. So Olivia's going to become a 5/5. Now Abramson can take that Necromancer if he chooses to. Again, remember, Abramson, when we Appetite for Brains, always silver lands. Don't know if he's drawn a spell just yet.
It looks like he might have drawn a Thragtusk, so he's going to have an interesting decision here. Does he want to play the Thragtusk here, or does he want to just steal the Necromancer? I think you probably want to steal the Necromancer.
You think so?
Yeah.
He's going to come to the red zone is Abramson. Now Duin being put to the test. Should I block? Because, if Abramson wanted to, he could make it so that Duin could never block here. He could just shot down all 3 flyers.
Yeah.
But now we're going to take it right on the chest, it looks like. Going to take 5 and go down to 11.
I'm surprised Jonathan actually just pinged the Necromancer there because what is your plan here? Is your plan to steal the Necromancer and then just take 3 in the air? Or you're obviously going to probably shoot down flyers here. You want to just make sure, because even if Brian does draw a tragic slip, you want to make sure he has as little of an army as possible. So what are we going to do here? It looks like we're going to see an Appetite for Brains, and Jonathan, does he still have just lands, or it looks like he might have a Thragtusk.
Looks like we're going to see some responses here. So he says, I'm going to take this Necromancer right now in response to Appetite for Brains. It is a Thragtusk, so he's got 3 lands in Overgrown Tomb, Forest, and Blood Crypt. Thragtusk is gone for good, but still problem number 1 is here.
So looks like Jonathan's actually at 12 life. We missed a hit there. So yeah, it looks like that turn Brian potentially could have dropped Jonathan down to 8 if Jonathan didn't block with the Olivia. So Jonathan now faced with a decision. It looks like Brian can attack with all 3 tokens.
Yeah, I think so. I think if you're Brian this turn, I think you just send with all 3 tokens, right? You put him to 9, and then what Abramson can do is just go shoot, all 3 tokens. Olivia becomes a 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then
so it would do a total. I think you can do a total of 10 damage to Brian.
Okay, so we're getting our life totals updated here because it looks like they may have been a little bit backwards because now you see Jonathan moving up to 15. So it looks like a bit of a life total discrepancy.
Yeah, so Brian is actually at 11. He can swing through and not. He won't die to the return even if Olivia is pumped all the way.
Correct.
And we're going to see Lingering Souls flashback, so give him a little more breathing room.
So here's what it is. It's the 2 tokens come into play. Abramson's gonna go down to 12. What it looks like to me here is that, what Braun Duin needs is Abramson to just like shoot down some tokens, make his Olivia big, and then Brian needs to peel the red source to mark Mutiny to try to steal the game.
I'm not sure he has enough though. That's the problem, because even if he draws a red source, it has to be a clifftop retreat or the Dragon Skull Summit, because I don't think he'll be able to afford to take 2.
Okay, gotcha.
Because it'll just be too low. I think Jonathan can drop him down to 1 life here.
I think you have to block this turn, right?
It looks like
if he's allowed to. So shoot bigger. I think if you're given the opportunity to block, I think you do. He chooses not to again. So there's a Blood Crypt into play tapped. Pass the turn back.
Yeah, and at this point, Jonathan played the turn well. He didn't expose himself to Mark really that much. So
yeah, he didn't move. Like it'd be very easy here to just go like shoot your guy, make my Olivia big, and just keep doing that, and then you would get blown out by Mark and Mutiny taking your guy and actually killing you. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen. And again, I don't even think that Brian showed the red source, but I think Brian was trying to play as well as he could to his outs of Jonathan making that mistake. And it doesn't look like he's made that mistake, and I don't think he's even peeled the red source to even open up that window.
Yeah, and he drew a Cavern of Souls, so if he had a Zealous Conscript, he still wouldn't even be able to cast it because he only has 3 mana. So not much Brian can do here. He did not draw an answer to that Olivia, and that's really all that mattered. I don't think Jonathan cast another spell this game. I think he only cast a Golgari Charm and Olivia, but Olivia is just so powerful.
Yeah, it was actually a 2-spell game. You're right. That's insane.
Yeah, just shows you, if you're going to be playing in this format, you want to play one of the powerhouses, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, actually, just 2 spells, that's it. Wrap it up. See, Braun Duin's going to try to go through the motions here. You're going to attack with 1 Spirit token. All right, Abramson's going to go down to 11.
Unfortunately, Abramson can just shoot down Brian's army of flyers, so they won't be able to block Olivia.
Yeah, it feels like to me that Brian's trying to induce some sort of mistake here. I don't know if there's a good way to do that when you're playing against Olivia Volder, and that's the issue. It's kind of this thing where there has to be some sort of huge blunder, and I think this.
Oh.
yeah, it felt like bought by the damn me too. I was gonna say this is gonna invalidate everything.
Well, it looks like Jonathan drew a shock, so he's gonna be able to drop Brian down to 1 no matter what with the shock.
Okay.
So let's see what he does here. It looks like Brian's trying to telegraph that he drew a Tragic Slip at turn. He didn't even play the land in order to telegraph it. Because it looks like Brian did draw a land for the turn, but he's trying to telegraph.
And Tragic Slip makes things very, very bad too for Abramson, because like if he ends up killing a token, then Brian Tragic Slips the Olivia, and then he gets a Necromancer back because Olivia's gone. So he's trying to telegraph that he drew a Tragic Slip in a big way. And I like the attack too, because like the attack, if he doesn't attack, then it feels like he's just like giving up.
Yeah.
But the attack is like, no, it's not over quite yet. I'm going to ding you a little bit here. You see Brian reaching.
Brian is trying
to sell
hard.
He's trying to sell it really hard.
The problem is that Jonathan already killed a creature. So that's what I don't understand. If Jonathan's willing to kill 1 creature, why not kill all of them?
Kill them all, yeah. It's all or none, right?
Yeah, you're triggering Morbid. You clearly are not playing around it anymore, so why not just go for the kill now? Brian is able to double block here, right?
Yeah, he could block each, but I don't think that Brian...
Oh, Brian's not playing around Shock.
He's not playing around Shock
Wow.
because I wouldn't play around Shock in this situation, because Jund decks simply don't have Shock. So as much as he's trying to sell this, and he's doing an insane job of it, he's going to get... You see the smile. He gets shocked in the face, and that is it. So Jonathan Abramson is going to win this match 2-1 over Braun Duin. Jund takes down the Aristocrats. Brian with a heck of a sell job there, trying to get himself out of that one. Shock kind of undoing everything, but trying to get every edge that he can.
I think he did. Yeah, he did pretty much everything he could to try to sell that Tragic Slip. He chose not to even play a land for the turn, just to kind of telegraph that yes, I drew a card for the turn, and it's a Tragic Slip.
Yep.
And I'm going to make this weird attack to confuse you a little bit, and then pass the turn back. And Jonathan, you can question whether or not he should have just killed all the creatures. If you're going to kill 1, why not kill all of them?
Yeah, got to commit to
guarantee.
one or the other.
Yeah.